All right, welcome back to Fight Talk with Jackson Vanderbosch and Austin Ullman. We are back. It's been about 3 weeks or so, and that is because obviously you can see we moved into college now and kind of trying to get into the flow of things. And on top of that, UFC's kind of been slacking recently. I don't think I've even watched the last three fight nights. I caught a little bit of that Brady fight, but other than that, hasn't been great. But this is pretty good. We got the Sphere coming up this weekend. UFC 306, headlined by Sean O'Malley and Merab Dvalishvili. Um, Not the groundbreaking event we were expecting, obviously. If you look at the card as a whole, it's not great. But Dana White's saying the star of the show is going to be the Sphere. He said, I think there's going to be movies or something playing throughout each fight, and there's going to be different worlds, and those are going to evolve into the last world. So I hope those little cutscenes, I guess, in the middle are like during the broadcast, and hopefully they don't go to commercials during that, or else it's going to be kind of an L for a fan watching on TV. And I mean, I don't know about you, but if they try to do it like from the outside, I mean, you're not going to be able to even see the fight. So I hope they like do the same camera angles and everything and just cut to, the actual Sphere projector during that, and they don't try anything special. I think this could be one of the greatest things we've ever seen or one of the worst things we've ever seen. But give me your thoughts on kind of the Sphere as a whole before we get into each matchup.
I think it's going to be really good. I think I know the UFC well enough and the money they've put into this, the resources they've put into this, it's incredible. It's so interesting because obviously commissioners love their sports. Rob Manfred, I believe, probably loves baseball and Roger Goodell loves football. But Dana White's a promoter. And so it's interesting because we saw what happened with UFC 300. Being a promoter's great. It lands you gigs like being the final speaker before the campaigning president at the RNC, but it also leaves you in situations where you really hype something up and maybe it's not that big. We saw that with UFC 300. Um, and now we're all kind of holding hope that hopefully we don't see this again. And he's great at it. And so he just went on First Take and he's been on these shows and you really hope that it's everything that he's making it sound like. I'm really fascinated by what this whole movies idea is. I think it could be really cool. They've spent a lot of money. It sounds like some of these resources and money will be used going forward. Um, but it sounds really good. And I think the UFC has become pretty stagnant as a broadcast. A lot of the broadcasts feel the same. Um, and we're in a landscape where, like, I turned on college football last week and all the scoreboards are different. And some I like, some I don't, but they're always changing. And the UFC doesn't have a lot of that. The fighters are changing and who's good and who's bad is changing. The broadcasts themselves don't change much. And so this is going to be a really interesting opportunity to see have they really upped their game? Have they hired some new people? And I think it could be amazing because nothing can get you fired up like a good fight promo. And this seems like it could be 10 times better than just a good fight promo.
Yeah, and I mean, we've seen the ticket prices go down, so obviously people aren't gonna want to spend $3,000 for a nosebleed ticket. So I hope the crowd is not a bunch of just rich people from Las Vegas, but it looks like they're like going for like $500 now. But should be really interesting to see how this thing plays out. Obviously, it's never been done before, and I don't think it ever will be done again. Dana White says because no one has this money. I think he said he's how much money has he put in? Like what, 20 mil or something like that, maybe more.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just insane how much money is being put into this. So hopefully it turns out. But let's talk about kind of the prelims here first. There's only 10 fights on this whole card, probably because of all that stuff that's going on in between. But we got Raul Rosas Jr. Um, starting the card off with a bang. So he's going to be fighting just an absolute can. He's the minus 1,000 favorite. I mean, how do you put Raul Rosas? I mean, at least put him against somebody who we know. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't
I
know if
get
he's
you want
ready
him
for
to
that
win,
though.
but
There's
like,
there's still some holes there.
right. Yeah. I mean, I get it. I think they could have given him at least someone with a name that he can beat. But yeah, he's
Yeah,
gonna be
this guy only
fighting.
has one name, by the way.
Yeah, he's uh, Aurel. Yeah, I don't even know. But Raul Rosas is getting this done in the first round by submission is my take.
Yeah, that's a good take. I mean, this guy is pretty big. Um, the Chiwiwis brand has grown to places that we never thought it would. Um, although I did have high hopes for it right off the bat. This is a good fight. The fact that Raul's like the second most known Mexican fighter on this card isn't a great thing. Um, but yeah, I'll I'll leave that be for the rest of the podcast. I could get into that a little more, but we'll leave that be and focus on the fights we have at hand. This guy's a superstar, and we're going to see him for a while.
Yeah, I mean throughout the card, you got a Mexican fighter fighting on every fight except for the Lopez and Ortega fight, and obviously the main event. But I mean, we
The two
can
best fights of the night, by the way.
exactly. But yeah, I mean, the Mexicans are going to be favored in every match except for it looks like Edgar Chairez against Joshua. No, he is he's the underdog. Um, so Joshua Van, this is the next fight on the card. He's good. He's a good fighter. He just got knocked out in that fight night of the Nami Yunus fight, but glad he's on here. I think he stepped in a little bit short notice, but he's fighting the Mexican. Not a whole lot of other. Yeah, I mean, Arian Aldana, but yeah, these other two fights in here are really bad. So let's move into the main card. I mean, there's not really much to talk about with those um prelim fights unless you got anything to say.
No, I mean Aldana's last fight was a banger, and the fight before that, I know we both had a great time watching. That was a fantastic, just dud of a performance from her. But her last fight was a banger, and I'm hoping we get more of the same here.
Yeah, so opening up the Sphere card, the highly anticipated Sphere card is going to be Ronaldo Rodriguez and Ode Osborne. So just a groundbreaking event here from Dana White. UFC 300 is going to be better than UFC 300, right? But we got Ode Osborne on the main card. So yeah, Ronaldo Rodriguez obviously favored in this one. But I think this actually is going to be a good fight. I've seen a lot of people picking Osborne, even though Ronaldo Rodriguez is obviously a Mexican fighter. So I mean, not really much to talk about here. I don't. I've only watched Osborne fight once, and I've never watched Rodriguez fight. I think Osborne's on a two-fight skid, two-fight losing streak.
Yeah, and it's a flyweight fight, so I think it's probably going to show pretty well what this card is supposed to be, and what Mexican fighting is, which is just absolute wars.
Yeah, I think he'll go by decision, go to decision, and I think Rodriguez is gonna win because he is the Mexican fighter. So we'll move into the next fight. Daniel Zellhuber. I mean, Daniel was hyping this guy up in that promo, and I've seen on Embedded this guy's getting a lot of screen time. So, and he's fighting Esteban Ribovic. I think this is the guy that just knocked out McKenny, right?
Yes,
So,
sir.
I mean, this ain't no bum for Zellhuber's
That was
um
nasty. That was a nasty
yeah,
knockout.
main card debut. So they both only got one loss, and it looks like Zellhuber's the minus 235 favorite. I think this is a closer fight than those odds are projecting. I think if Ribovic wins, I would not be surprised whatsoever.
Yeah, I actually picked him as I think I did as my um like first half of the year awards knockout of the year. When you take away stakes, like the Pereira one with the stakes was big, but when you take that away, I was between him and Vinicius Oliveira for the knockout of the year, and I ended up taking him. He absolutely, I mean, the definition of slept Terrence McKinney, like literally slept him. I mean, the guy just fell back on the cage, and I saw a tweet the other day. We got to get Terrence McKinney back in there, man. It's just so much fun.
Yeah, I think if it goes to a decision again, I think Daniel Zellhuber wins because I mean, I've seen people picking a Mexican sweep here. Wouldn't be surprised if that happens because I mean, this is the tribute to all the Mexicans sponsored by the Saudis. So, yeah. But we'll get into Brian Ortega and Diego Lopez. This is a fun fight. I mean, this was obviously supposed to happen. UFC 303 and Ortega um got the cold or whatever and switched the weights and all that. So I don't know how you're rewarding him for that, but he is here fighting Diego Lopez. I think Lopez gets it done. I think he's just a better fighter than Ortega. I think he's definitely on the come up. He's the minus 180 favorite, and I think he probably should be more, so he's definitely going to be in my parlays.
Do we know where Dan Ige's at right now? Is he ready for this fight? I mean, is he going to step in again? That was crazy. We're going to look back and say that was crazy. I mean, that was that's the only time something like that's ever happened in this sport. And we see a lot of crazy things in this sport when you talk about last minute substitutions and late notice fights and things like that. That was crazy. Um, Good for Ortega. I mean, I'm happy that he gets the chance again, even though he did sit out a while and we don't love that. Um, but Diego Lopez is the guy. He's the future champ at 145. Um, just, I mean, even the way that he beat Ige after going up in weight. I mean, it's the smaller version of Alex Pereira, getting quick finishes and literally just doing whatever the UFC wants. I mean, he's taking any fight they want. I think originally he wanted Evloev for this card, which makes sense. That was his loss that he took quickly. That was his first UFC fight, and he wants to get revenge there, and he will. Um, Eventually, I think we probably both believe. But Ortega's a good matchup. I mean, he's a good wrestler, and he can push Lopez on the ground. But Lopez he has a certain type of violence that Ortega doesn't have on the ground, and I think Lopez easily beats him up top. There's really not, I mean, this is closer odds than I would have imagined. I really don't see much of a path to victory from Ortega here. I mean, unless there's like a big weakness of getting taken down that we haven't seen from Lopez, which there could be because he's gone for a lot of quick takedowns and knockouts. Unless there's a gaping hole there, there's not much of a path to victory. I mean, I'm going to take Diego here. I think he could do it any which way, honestly. But I'll say he knocks him out.
Yeah, I agree. I think he knocks him out as well. Ortega, he got knocked down in that Rodriguez fight in like the first round, and he was out of that fight. I don't even know how he won that still. Rodriguez just was an idiot in that fight, but I don't think Lopez is an idiot. I think he's a smart fighter, and people are gonna discredit that last win of, oh, he looked terrible in the last round against a guy who's obviously coming off a what, like 2 hour notice. But I think Lopez got screwed more than Ige and Ortega. If you have to switch your weight twice and wake up in the middle of the night and figure that out, obviously we've talked about it on this podcast before, but I think he was at the disadvantage there, and for him to win that was very impressive. So co-main event, Alexa Grasso, Valentina Shevchenko, the trilogy. Alexa Grasso is a minus 140 favorite at the moment. And I think that last one was a draw, and I think Shevchenko should have won that if the ref or the judge didn't do a 10-8. I don't think it was a 10-8. So yeah, but I'm gonna, with that being said, I think I'm gonna pick Grasso just because I think Shevchenko's 36 years old, and it's just so hard to win that belt back in any weight class. So I think Alexa Grasso is the more primed fighter. I think she wins by decision.
And it just feels like the moment. I mean, like, we're not gonna look back at Raul's career and say like, oh, that win at the Sphere, that was like his Mexican homecoming. We could say that for Alexa Grasso. Like this is by far the biggest fight of her career and of the trilogy. She has been so impressive. She's been on such a tear in the UFC, and you're right, Shevchenko's age plays a role here. It was interesting for a time we didn't know if we were gonna get this fight. Maybe it sounded like someone else was gonna step in. We thought maybe Rose was gonna get the chance or something. Um, the Ultimate Fighter plays like no role in this fight. Like I don't think anyone watched that this year. It was a pretty horrible season. Um, but it's a great fight, and it is. I mean, it headlined this last year, and it was a fight night. Obviously, the Mexican Independence Days. There's been a fight night in Vegas. Obviously, now with the Sphere, it's a pay-per-view. It's UFC 306 put on by Riyadh Season. Um, but this is for both of these ladies. This is their moment. This is just such a big fight, and it's really not being talked about enough. I mean, this is the best rivalry we have in women's fighting, and it's really not close. I mean, there's better fights, like you could argue Grasso Zhang Weili would be a better fight, but they haven't fought yet. That's not a rivalry yet. This is the one right here. This is the women's fight that when we look back at 5, 10 years and say, okay, in that little era, what was the fight? This is the fight. This trilogy is the fight. And I think Alexa Grasso will come out on top once again, and we will remember her name.
Yeah, so main event, we've got a lot of time to talk about this. We kind of did that on purpose because I think we stand on different sides here. It'll be a fun, just really fun to talk about because this fight obviously goes one of two ways, either Merab 50-45 Sean O'Malley or Sean O'Malley bounces his head off the canvas. Obviously, you can see the odds right here. Interesting because Merab opened as a favorite. I think he was a -130 favorite. I think these switched around actually. I think O'Malley was the +110 underdog to start. Obviously now everybody putting money on O'Malley because he was that underdog and now this switch. So O'Malley's the favorite now. And yeah, let's just talk about how we see this fight going. This is a great main event, despite like a pretty bad card. I think obviously we're not going to be talking about what or Irene Aldana did in match six. We're going to be talking about the main event and the Sphere. So I think they did this on purpose. They don't really need to stack it. I think O'Malley is arguably the biggest star in the sport. Obviously, Alex Pereira up there as well. But yeah, I mean, great matchup here. I think they're both like made for them match like stylistically. If you're Marab, it's like this is his easiest fight. And I think if you're O'Malley, this is almost your easiest fight as well because they're both terrible on the striking for Marab and the wrestling for O'Malley. I think O'Malley's a better wrestler than people give him credit for, but Marab obviously a lot better than him.
Yeah, this is such an interesting opportunity for Sean O'Malley. He's getting something that Conor McGregor never got, John Jones never got, Alex Pereira never got. So Alex Pereira, and it's interesting. We look at UFC 300 and we're like, that's the Pereira. That was his moment. We're gonna look back and him headlining 300 and 303 and co-maining MSG. It's not gonna, or he was the main event for MSG. Sorry, because of the heavyweight fight was canceled, but those are all going to look the same to us. We're not going to care that he knocked out Jamal Hill and it was on UFC 300. In fact, I think the UFC 303 knockout against Yuri was already bigger, right? And so 300 felt big at the time. It won't be big when you look back at Pereira's career. This is different. McGregor never had this. We're going to look back at Sean O'Malley's career. If he wins this fight, and we're always going to look and say, oh my goodness, that's the Sphere knockout. That was amazing. That was that one-time show we did, different than anything else we've ever done. And Sean O'Malley was the one who got to do that, the biggest superstar we have in the sport. I mean, it's a great opportunity for him. Um, but yeah, it's like McGregor never got that, right? And I think that's what's so fascinating about it being here and the fact that Dana is guaranteed this is only a one-time thing.
Yeah. So let's let's just express where we both land on our predictions here. I'm obviously going to pick Sean O'Malley here, and I'm fairly confident he gets it done. I think he knocks him out in the second round. Could be the first. I think this might be one of the most brutal knockouts we've ever seen in the sport. I think Merab is going to go down, and I don't even know if Sean O'Malley will have to give the follow-up shots. I think he'll just be out cold. Um, just because Merab is a really bad striker. I think Aljo actually presented something on the feet. We saw what happened there. And on top of that, Sean O'Malley in that camp leading up to Sterling, he didn't even wrestle or grapple for like 5 or 6 weeks, I don't think, in that because of some rib
Which,
injury or
by the way,
something
was totally his fault. He should have backed out.
of the fight.
Yeah.
I mean, he
I mean, I,
won.
I know he won, so hindsight's 2020, you can look back and say, yeah, it's good that he took the fight, but he should have never taken that fight.
Well, I mean, yeah, if he's the champ, I think you could say, hey, I'm not gonna fight. But if you're challenging for the belt, I mean, he was already off like a year layoff. You have to take that fight.
Not if you're him though, because he was going to get that regardless.
Maybe but I mean, he won the fight either way. So, but now,
I just hope he's been grappling and wrestling in this training camp. That's all I'm saying.
yeah. So how many takedowns is looks like six a fight or something like six every 15 minutes. So obviously this guy's just spamming takedowns.
He's on
Um,
pace to break the record, I believe.
yeah. So I mean, I could see O'Malley kneeing him in the face. I could see him. I mean, we saw I posted a t Twitter um video of where Marab is just open to that left hand. I've seen a lot of other people posting that too, so maybe it's that obvious or maybe it's not that big of a deal. But obviously he got caught in that Cejudo fight. Cejudo's obviously washed. He might retire now and against some random, absolutely just destroyed Marab. And man, this could be bad. That's all I'm saying. This could be very bad. If you're a Marab fan, I'm sorry. He might get murdered.
Well, luckily I'm not a Marab fan, but I do think it's important um to understand. For one, Marab's a much better striker than I think you're giving him credit for. I mean, this is a guy who
What? Nah. Okay,
it's
who's better, Sterling or Marab at striking?
Marab.
Bro,
He doesn't strike. I mean,
I mean I think he outstruck O'Malley just in that first round, actually. I think he won that round off the striking.
he might have, but that was O'Malley's first title fight, and I don't know. He didn't look. He was very nervous. He said coming into that fight, and you could tell it a little bit.
Hmm.
Here's how I think this goes. Sh- I don't think, and we've had this conversation. I mean, ever since I guess Marab took his jacket, maybe we've had this conversation. Um, by the way, quick thought, I can't wait for the press conference tomorrow. It's gonna be theater, but ever since
You
he
see
took
that's
that
in the
jacket,
parking lot?
really,
Yeah, in the parking lot of the Sphere is where the press
how does
conference
that
is going to
work
be.
with is are they still doing tickets?
Yeah, they said doors open at whatever, so I don't know how that works, but
Wow. Well, ever since he took the jacket, we've been talking about this fight, and this was the one, and it even Sean potentially after 299 was talking to some people, and he got on the mic and he said made the comment about Ilya because people were talking about the Ilya fight, and then you could tell that he knew very quickly, no, I need to take care of Marab first. Um, Marab is probably, I mean, Umar's up there, but this is the fight. This is the fight in this division, and we've known this for a while. What I've noticed that you don't understand is the toll that Marab laying on you for 5 minutes would take. He picked up Henry Cejudo, who's a double champ and who's one of the great wrestlers that we've seen in this sport. He picked him up and he took him over to the side of the cage. I mean, that's incredible. And if that happens, let's say for 4 minutes in the first round, I don't know that O'Malley can recover from that. We've never seen him in that position, but that's not something, I mean, that takes a gigantic toll. It's the great question of, oh my goodness, if Ankalaev were to take Pereira down, but this guy's a different beast. And I think him on top of O'Malley for 4 minutes would completely destroy the game plan. And I don't know. I mean, at some point he would maybe have to put him away. And we saw him try to put Cheeto away, and that didn't work.
yeah, I was going to say something with I don't know. I think I think he knocks him out. I just don't see how. I was going to say like so obviously if he takes him down in that first round, which I think he actually will. I think Merab will take down Sean O'Malley. But I actually I think O'Malley's a dog. I think he's actually tougher than you give him credit for. A lot of people give him credit for. I mean, you look at that Peter Yan fight, like that's a dog fight, and he obviously won. People thought he lost, but I mean, still, he's gonna bite down on that mouthpiece if he has to. Um, but obviously, we've never seen him get taken down for that long, so it is hard to predict a fight like this. It feels like. it feels like Sterling O'Malley in a sense, but with a guy who's just gonna spam more takedowns. So
Do
it's
you
just
think
hard
it's
to
a tougher
know.
fight?
Yeah, I do. But I think yeah, I mean that is I guess an argument, but I think Sterling also kind of got screwed with having to defend that quick.
And also, it's just like, I mean, like at the end of the day, neither of us knows. Like, I don't think you would be surprised if Merab takes him down for 5 rounds and wins that way, and I wouldn't be surprised, obviously, if Sean knocks him out. I mean, like, if they fight 5 times, like, we'll probably see two, 2 to 3 in outcomes. I mean, it's going to be fairly even, I think. And I would have said the same thing about Eljo. I actually think Eljo's like a bad fighter now, based on what we've seen. Like,
What?
I don't think Eljo was ever championship material at 35 now. But
You were calling him the GOAT and stuff.
I never called him the
That's crazy how
GOAT,
you
but
turn on him that quick.
no, I didn't. Well,
You were
his
so
last fight,
confident he was winning that O'Malley fight too. That
I
we
was.
didn't have a
And
podcast at the time, but
if
man,
they fought again, I think I would still give him a pretty solid chance, actually. I mean, it's a matter of time. Umar's coming up. There's I we haven't seen him. He's gonna That's the difference is Marab is not scared to shoot it. And I think that's one of the things is Aljo was a little scared to shoot early. And I think if Marab just goes in there and shoots right away, I don't think O'Malley has an answer for that.
yeah, I mean, so you really think he's if he gets taken down for let's just say 4 minutes in the first round, you don't give him a chance at all, and like you think he's just gonna be completely gassed the rest of the
I
fight?
don't. I think that would take such a major toll. You just look at his body and you look at his fighting style. I mean, this is a guy. I mean, if he takes him down, he's already up 1-0. You need to take him down twice more. And O'Malley, I don't think O'Malley's getting up at all. I mean, I've seen nothing that would tell me. And even if he does, I mean, Marab just continues to shoot over and over and over. That's literally what he does. I I think
So
it'll be
can I ask like
significantly easier it would be significantly easier if he takes him down once to take him down again.
yeah, I mean, so you look at the height and the reach, obviously a big advantage there. How do you think Merab is even gonna reach O'Malley without just getting obliterated?
Well, I think Marab's much smarter
Like he's a
at taking
very
guys.
little human.
He is, but he's much smarter, and those guys know. I mean, you look at a guy like Islam, Marab, Khabib, they're not just dominant wrestlers. They know when to shoot, and it's not easy to tell. And it's usually after they land a good shot. They're immediately Umar too. In Umar's last fight, a lot of his takedowns would come after clean shots against Sandhagen. And immediately when that shot hits, they have no idea that it's even coming because they're trying to react from the shot, and all of a sudden they're on the ground, they've been taken down. And I don't think you can tell me that. I mean, Marab is a much better striker than people give him credit for. He is.
He's bad. He's a very bad striker. But so do you see this fight going similarly to like a Bilal Muhammad, Leon Edwards?
Yeah.
I think, yeah. I mean, I think Merab's only path to victory here, not only path, but I think if he wins, it's going to be 50-45. I think he wins every round.
But the thing with Bilal is Bilal showed some impressive actually Bilal outstruck Leon Edwards in that fight. And I
Yeah.
think we'll see some of that if he takes him down. That gets him so much confidence. And he's all of a sudden now quicker in the stand-up game too. And it's a game changer for a guy like Umar or Bilal. All of a sudden Umar is outstriking Corey Sandhagen and we're like, are you kidding me? Like, how does
Yeah.
this happen? It's the takedown. It's a game changer.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think I think he wins 50-45 if he does win, but the problem is this guy can't finish anybody. So he's going to have to lay on O'Malley for 5 rounds. In the sphere, man, I just don't see that happening. Like I don't see a super boring fight and you take out the biggest star in the sport, I'll say if this happens, I will crash out. I will never watch UFC again if Merab wins a 50-45 decision. I would be a casual fan. I mean, it's getting to a point now where all these just such boring fighters are beating the dogs of the UFC. And it's like, yeah, I mean, the wrestlers are taking over or whatever, but it's still a business, it's still entertainment. They're trying to get rid of some of these bums, but man, oh man, it's gonna be bad if Merab wins. I mean, you talk about you like that Umar Merab matchup, but like, man, I don't I
I
don't even think I would watch that fight.
I'm cheering for O'Malley in this fight. I will say that it's better for the sport. I think Marab will win. Um, a Marab Umar fight is fun, but yes, O'Malley. But O'Malley's one of those guys. I don't know how much he needs the title anymore either, and he desperately. Maybe the best thing for him would be to lose the title soon because Umar's
But
coming,
not this one. Not
and
this
there's
one.
and Figgy's coming. There's more. There's
I
more
think,
wrestlers coming.
yeah, I mean, obviously I don't do you think he's prime right now? Like O'Malley's in the prime of his career
I
at
think so.
29?
I think so.
Yeah, I agree. I think this is his peak fight right here. I think we'll look back at this and say that was peak O'Malley where he obliterated Merab Davis really. But I think he'll try to go up fight Ilya. I think because I think Ilya might beat Max or I don't know. It's hard to, say that, but I think a Max Holloway, Sean O'Malley fight's awesome. Even if, O'Malley loses this fight or Holloway loses that fight, that's a cool fight. I think O'Malley also will go to boxing soon.
I agree. I'm also not going to pretend like this is a great thing for the division, that there's a bunch of dominant wrestlers. I think like the light heavyweight division is like ideal. You've got a bunch of strikers, Khalil Rountree, Yuri Prochazka, Jamal Hill, bunch of guys who are like, maybe they can outstrike Alex Pereira. The fact of the matter is they can't. And then there's that one guy that's looming in the distance, that is Magomed Ankalaev, who is like, there's the wrestler. With Sean O'Malley, it's like we have this superstar and it's just like six wrestlers chasing him down. That's not
Yeah.
ideal. It's not ideal. We're going to look back and say that's kind of frustrating. I wish there was more Peyton Talbots who were older in this division that could make exciting fights. It's why the Ilya fight is so big. So it's not ideal, and I'm not pretending that it is. I think like the Pereira situation is perfect. A bunch of strikers and then one wrestler. And then if we look back and he actually beats the wrestler, we can say, oh my goodness, he beat all kinds of fighters, but isn't just one kind of or just the other.
Yeah. I think it makes it almost more impressive. Obviously that last title defense from O'Malley wasn't like it's not gonna wow you, but it was a great performance. Honestly, like a masterclass on a I mean, you can call him a can or whatever, but I mean, he looked great in that fight either way. I think that fight against Sterling was great. I think I think he wins this fight. And I think something happens in between where Peter Yan fights somebody, he wins, and I think they run that back, and that's maybe O'Malley's last title defense before he loses something.
I think one last thought on the stylistic part of the fight. I think maybe the most interesting thing to watch will be when slash ish, but I think when Marab takes him down, how long can he keep him down there? Because Marab, in order to be on pace to break the UFC record for takedowns, and in order to hold the record for most takedowns in a fight, that means you're not a dominant layer, as we would call
Right,
laying on the
yeah.
ground. And he's not. And guys get up. Like he's like naturally really good. Like the whole Cejudo thing is crazy. You can't get that picture out of your mind, him carrying him. But he's not a guy that can keep guys on the ground for 5 minutes. And so if he can keep O'Malley, that's a big shot to what O'Malley can do on the ground. But that's something to really keep an eye on is when that happens, how long does he keep him on the ground? Um, because we've seen nothing of this from O'Malley. So we really have no idea.
Yeah, I mean that's what I was kind of saying earlier. It's just so hard to predict a fight like this because we haven't seen O'Malley held down. But so do you think like Merab has to kind of push him into the cage to take him down almost, right? Because I mean, O'Malley's just gonna be dancing and styling on him.
Yeah, without a
'Cause
doubt.
I think O'Malley's got great defense on the cage. I know, I mean, I've kind of been tuning into his whole camp. He always posts stuff, and that's obviously all they're working on is up against the cage and on the back and stuff. And obviously, the striking is going to be what they're going to be practicing the most because he will knock out Marab.
Yeah, I just want to give a quick thought on what the future might look like. If O'Malley wins, the sphere, the fact that it's in the sphere is a big deal. The opponent won't mean anything. I mean, if he wins, Marab won't be much different than like Cheeto and Umar and anyone else that he beats in the future. I mean, he'll just be another one of the guys that he beat. Um, if Marab wins, obviously Umar seems like his next, which is an interesting fight. Um, Obviously Aljo's not coming back because him and Marab are buddies if he wins, but I don't think Aljo's coming back either way. But then you've got Peyton Talbot in the distance in this division. Is really the guy that I look at. There's no one else that I think. I mean, if Jose Aldo wins again, there could be talks about him maybe. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised for a title shot. There was after his last win, but that's my thoughts. If O'Malley wins, it's just another win. If Marab wins, it's not great. I mean, it's not great for the UFC. Marab Ilya, there's just nothing there. So at the end of the day, O'Malley Ilya, that's the one.
Yeah, I think we've had too much stuff in the past that like have just been so disappointed. Like, I mean, I picked DDP to beat Adesanya, but obviously I was cheering for Izzy. Bilal winning is not great. There's a lot of things that happen in the past. Umar beating Sandhagen, just a lot of stuff that'll just, grind your gears as a UFC fan. But I think this is the one that we'll be looking back at that. I mean, this might be one of the worst knockouts in UFC history. I mean, I'm sorry if you're a Marab fan. This is going to be very painful.
I can't wait for the press conference tomorrow. It's gonna be
But yeah,
good.
I think Marab wins the press conference, by the way.
Really, you're on a 1-0 streak right now, so
Yeah. I think I mean O'Malley's just a guy that with a
I
lot of
I don't know.
one-liners
I
and
don't
stuff.
know. That's a tough one. They're both really funny.
Yeah. No, I think Marab's gonna have a lot of stuff to say to him. I mean, there's a lot of stuff you can say, and look at the guy. He's just looks like an idiot.
He can, but I don't know if Marab's that quick. I think he might need. I think he needs a
No,
camera, and I think it takes him a few tries to shoot those videos.
yeah. You're right. I think it will be a great press conference. I mean, I'll just say if I hear one freaking reporter go, "What does it mean to you to be fighting for all the
Ooh.
Mexican people on the Saudi sponsored card in the sphere?" Man, I might turn that crap off. We need better
Yeah,
questions, dude. This is getting
I
bad.
I I totally agree. Um, no, that was a lot of fun to debate that. I think obviously I think Marab, you think Sean. Um, I think Marab wins it 4 rounds to 1. Also, before we go, I just dropped a Canelo breakdown on YouTube, so check that out. That's obviously fighting with the Sphere. There's been some big drama there. Oscar De La Hoya is going to the Sphere, so that's interesting. But I just dropped that Canelo Berlanga, great fight. Check that out.
Yeah, obviously sub to the YouTube channel at Fight Talk on YouTube. We're gonna be posting on there once a week now. But obviously the last 3 weeks we really weren't able to. I think we're kind of getting back into the flow of things with school and everything. So yeah, follow the Twitter account. We're gonna be promoting stuff there. And I'll post this podcast on Spotify and YouTube podcast now, so you can listen to that however you may want to. But thank you for listening to UFC 306 preview, and we'll catch you after the fact of all the fights.